what I was doing, preparing to live stream because it's saying that. Look at that. Read that. It's my assigned seat. We are live.
So call this meeting to order. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See no public hearings. I see no adjustments to the agenda, is there? Any citizens' comments? Select board comments? Bob? No. John?
The only thing I'm gonna talk about real quick is this Friday night, the street dance down there behind the old Worcester parking lot. And then next Friday night, what's that, the 15th? We're gonna do the premiere of the TV show. We had LCTV, the 250th committee had LCTV video and film whole weekend events. And it's about an hour and 15 minutes at the Waldo next Friday night. I'm gonna do a presentation on seeing what we did.
Cool. 6
Awesome.
o'clock, right?
6 o'clock.
On the 15th. Cool. Mike?
Not much. Saturday is Community Cares Day, where we go around and fix people's double wides and trailers, put up stairs. Thank you, John, for the donation of those stairs. Put a lot of skirting up, things like that. So that's going on Saturday.
Everybody ready for it to,
Pretty much.
Will?
I don't know, like that.
All right, let the town manager decide to skip her section of this meeting.
I did not have a report for this evening.
Okay. No new business, old business, discussing the RSU 40 bond referendum.
I just wanted to make sure we could see any comments that came up.
Okay. I guess I will open up the floor because there were some people on the board that wanted to have a meeting to discuss this.
Yeah,
See what they have to say.
I'm right up at the top of that list. It's an awful lot of money and it's and everyone at this table can afford to pay more taxes, but there's a lot of people in this town that really can't. And the same people that I'm working to help this coming Saturday. Although my particular project is in Newcastle this year, not in Waldeboro. Now, I had a number of questions and the biggest question that I had, which drives almost everything else, is there a need for the extra space in the two schools, in the middle school and at the high school? And of course, there's a smaller piece, which is a covered storage for the school buses. But that's not a big number. My specific question is, and I asked Steve, I can't remember his last name. I asked him, what are the projected, say for a 5 or 10 year period? What's the projected number of students that are going to be attending those schools? And I haven't heard an answer yet. And I'd like to know, there's a lot of things that are going on right now. The cost of housing and the cost of starting a family is just going through the roof. Property values for somebody trying to buy a new home are through the roof. Interest payments on loans It's going through the roof. And we just had 2 tax increases in this town. And now we're gonna add another $1,200 a year on a young family. So we really need to know what is driving. And again, it's in direct costs. About a third of that bond issue is for new space at the schools. Is it needed? And are there other solutions? That's what I would like to know.
Anybody else?
I had to type this out because I just don't want to miss anything. On Tuesday, August 22nd, I sat and listened to a presentation by the RSU superintendent, school board members and staff regarding the proposal to put forth a question to the voters to request approval of an $81 million bond for capital improvements to the district. Since that presentation, I've watched the presentation on YouTube in entirety at least once, and probably bits and pieces of it. And I don't think a day's gone by that I haven't thought about it. I've had many discussions with community members about this topic, and at this point, I can't support this request personally. It's obvious the facilities director spent a lot of time putting a presentation together in order to convey the message from the school board and the staff of the RSU. However, there are still a lot of unanswered questions for such a big ask. More than once, our select board asked for priorities and or areas that could be looked at closer to reduce the requested amount. The superintendent himself stated that he has been directed by the board to request the entire amount. Even one select board member made the comment that we all have different priorities, so we don't have a priority right now. No one's arguing, and I made this comment on that day, no one's arguing the point that repairs and improvements are needed to be made. However, at this point in today's economy, tackling all the asks at one time would be a heavy burden on the taxpayers of Waldeboro. If this bond request were to get approved by the voters, the impact on the town's annual budget will be affected dramatically. In order to minimize the impact on taxpayers, we as town officials would have to make drastic cuts to our own town budget. Would we be able to offer any social services to our citizens? Would it mean cutting emergency services? Would it mean not paving roads, maintaining our town's infrastructure? These would be tough questions that we would have to answer. Yes, the RSU states they will be getting $81 million. They will not be getting $81 million at one time. However, leaving a checkbook open to them all this is not something I'm comfortable with. Superintendent also mentioned that probably should have started some of this a decade ago. Now, why weren't we doing this a decade ago? Why are we waiting till now? What are you doing with your capital funds that you're getting every year? We've been presented with projected costs of each of these projects. Where do these estimates come from? Do we have engineering or initial plans? Kind of interesting to see what they've actually put in place to get these figures. I would certainly recommend that the school board go back to the district and prioritize the projected needs that need to be done. We'll worry about the wish list later.
Yeah, I kind of echo John's and Mike's concerns. At a minimum, I would have hoped to see a list of priorities. And from the top down. And to know where the school board stood on those priorities. Clearly, they're recommending a whole package, but it seems to me that the package is more like a wish list than it is a list of things that really have to get done. And they talked about accreditation. That's a serious issue. If the school district is going to apply for and receive federal funds going forward, whatever the time frame, the school district has to be accredited. And they're having difficulty with that. There was no direct correlation other than in a very general sense drawn between the $81 million bond and the accreditation. Absolutely. I would like them to pinpoint where they're having problems with accreditation so that we as voters know what's important. Can't cut off your nose to spite your face. You have to understand what is impeding our ability or could potentially impede our ability to apply for the federal monies needed in the long term to make the structures viable. So that's my concern.
They did drop off, from the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and I put it at your desk, the, New England Association of Schools, and it was about, the special progress report for accreditation. So that is at your chair tonight.
That's fine, and it would be nice to have a commentary on that from the school board. This is what the association is saying, this is where our accreditation problems are. I'm just going over it very briefly because I just saw it, but the word I see most is library. And that's talking about progress, apparently. They've learned that, well, just for an example, the use of an educational technician to keep the library accessible to students and staff daily in the absence of a librarian. The use of a student library aide to assist the educational technician, the use of ESSER funds to purchase new seating and books for the library, an effort to reorganize and paint the library, a plan to address the facilities issues pending the outcome of the bond referendum in November 2023. So there's an allusion to the bond issue, but there is no discussion of that bond issue and how it ties directly to the issue of accreditation. And that is concerning to me.
Yeah, that was one of the things I picked up on big time. It's,
I mean, I don't question the dedication, the effort that the school board has put into lifting the school district up and making it look more forward and improve. But I question the way in which it's being done. It's like an ultimatum in a sense. And I'm not comfortable with that. So my hope is that we'll vote this down, not because we're not agreeing that there could be problems, but because we would like to have a more cogent, organized presentation that relates the costs to the priorities and actually sets the priorities. Did Danny Jackson drop some things off with you?
He dropped off, the vote. I put it in your boxes.
Okay, he also said he dropped off a projection of the demographic of the population of the school.
It's possible that it would have, I was not in last week,
Okay,
but what he gave us was the vote. He dropped that off,
all right.
but I was not here last week.
Well,
So
again,
I'm sure it would have ended up in your boxes, and this would be this also he dropped off was the
Okay.
accreditation piece.
I mean, the projections they're making of school population in the district aren't dynamic. They're showing a slight decrease over the next 10 to 12 years in the student population. And that's pretty typical of what we've all seen going on. I don't know how you relate that to 81 million bucks. And I haven't seen any effort to do that. So again, it's kind of up in the air at this point. I think we're deserving of a better explanation.
think, well.
No.
I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, some of the things that were in that report were kind of outlandish. I mean, they're not a necessary thing. You know, we need boilers. And we need other things, but. Those are necessities, not like you said, wish list stuff. Those are necessities. I don't see how they can actually come to the towns and ask them for this without having a list of a priorities list at all.
Would you like me to read the question at any point?
Yes, please.
Do you favor now, this question was put together by the school and submitted for us for the ballot, so this is their wording. And we can't change their wording. Do you favor authorizing the school board of regional school unit number 40, the RSU, to issue bonds or notes in the name of RSU for school construction and minor capital project purposes, including the projects described below, collectively the project in the principal amount not to exceed 81 million? The project may include, but is not limited to the following. Improve ventilation and heating in all 7 schools, improve safety and security in all 7 schools, repairs to schools' gymnasiums, make exterior structural repairs to all 7 schools, repair or replace parking lots at all 7 schools, replace Madomic Valley High School septic system, improve water systems at all 7 schools, upgrade and or replace playground equipment at all 5 elementary schools, complete interior renovations and a 12,000 square foot addition to Miller School, complete interior renovations and 15,000 square foot addition to Madomic Valley High School, install artificial turf on the Madomic Valley High School football and soccer field, add lighting and bleacher seating on the Madomic Valley High School football and soccer field, repair and resurface the track around the Madomic Valley High School football and soccer field. This bond, if approved, will not impact local taxes until at least 2025. So that is currently how it reads. And they asked that, that was the wording. However, we need to see the proofs when they come back before the official ballots. And we haven't gotten it back. So Pam submitted that, not last week, but the week before. And we're still waiting for a draft ballot back from the printer.
The terms that everybody has been objecting to is, if you would read that, may be used for that section. Could you repeat that again, Julie?
Sure. That section says. The project may include, but is not limited to the following.
That is really problematic language as far as I'm concerned, because maybe we're going to build a stadium instead of expanding the schools. I mean, it does not specifically say what they're going to do with the money. It's very open-ended, and it certainly is 180 degrees from itemizing and prioritizing what needs to be done.
You guys all set right now? George?
Oh, wait, if you could come up to the podium, because then everybody can hear you at home.
Business owner in town. Front and center.
Yes, George Seaver. I was on the school board years ago when there was more kids than there are now. From the standpoint of the Economic Development Committee meeting that may follow this one, I can't imagine picking Waldeboro to live in if I had this open-ended question about future taxes. As you, I think, said in the original meeting, the more it costs for taxes, the fewer families you're going to get here, which pushes the population in the wrong direction. But to have this significant changes in taxes, increases in taxes that aren't even really predictable in any kind of a timeline, seems like a big reason to go someplace else. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add one point, because I don't want to sound too one-sided on this, but George, your comment reminded me of this. I mean, the school is the most important asset we have. We've all said that before. We all know that. But it really has to do with transparency and, well, transparency. I'm going to stick with that word rather than move on from there. But this is not transparency, and that's where I'm uncomfortable. So.
Anybody else got anything? Do we? I guess we have no choice. It's going on the ballot regardless. We can't convince them to go back and to the drawing board. They don't want to wait. So if they lose, they're gonna learn a valuable lesson. That you really need to have I understand everybody says go to the school board meetings, stuff like that, the budget meetings, but it's not that simple. You know. And it just bothers me because I've been through nine budgets now here at the town level and a couple at the state level. And it seems like they're operating the same way as the state does. Just gives you a pile of papers and say, here, this is what you got to work with, and so be it. You know, it doesn't outline like we do at the town level, where we sit here in 4 or 5 nights and go through everything to make sure we actually need it. And the state level doesn't do it, and it seems like the school's following suit. To me. It's very frustrating, especially with the state budget. I mean, you get. Departments that are hundreds of millions of dollars. But you have no clue whether they actually need that money. They get. I think there's over 2,000 jobs unfilled at the state level, but they're funded. Do we really need all those jobs? You could save hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. By removing those positions like we have in this town. We've had positions that have been open for years. We have not filled them. Doesn't look like we're gonna fill them. So we, instead of having 5 open positions that we're financed, that we're budgeting for, we cut it back to 2 or 3. So that saves money, but the state and the town, the state and the school seem to be on the same page as just. It's a slush fund and I'm just not happy with it. There's priorities that we need and that's that. But the other stuff is not a necessity. It's not gonna close the school. Sewer system's gonna close the school, heating system's gonna close the school. Water systems are gonna close the school. Those are 3 top priorities. That's all they should care about right now. When they get those paid off, then they should worry about the rest. Go ahead.
If I could add, I would have liked to see some discussion of relating the septic system at Madomic High School to extension of the municipal sewer system out there. I mean, there's been talk about it.
I believe that was a discussion
Did
that
they
we
look at
had.
that?
I believe they did.
And did they look at it long-term? What was their time frame? I mean, if we have to replace. the
That I
septic-
do not know, but I do know that the time frame for that happening was a lengthy one.
And they don't have time.
Well, not only that, but there's a lot more involved. And I know John Fancy had looked at that and proposed that many moons ago. And the number of properties it would have to cross was prohibitive. That was
Okay.
the information I had. I was under the impression they had looked at it more recently, but Mike, you might
Yeah.
have more information about
I'm
that.
on the Waldeboro Utility District Board and Brian Dace did come over and talk to us. And we had performed a study several years ago, and I don't remember the exact number, but it was in the $5 to $7 million range to extend that sewer. Which is considerably less than the cost to build a new leach field. Now it is. It was probably short-sighted not to connect from day one. But we're living with decisions that were made long ago. As I understand it, it's been repaired or rebuilt 2 or 3 times since it was originally constructed, so. Maybe it'll last 10 or 12 years, the new leach field.
It was bad 30 years ago.
Well, they had 2, right? And one blew out.
In 2000, the one under the softball field blew out, I understand. Just
And they're only operating on one right now.
Yeah.
And with the football field and putting lights up and artificial turf, that's not a priority right now. I'm sorry, but that's not, It just blows my mind that. And I understand they want to project this over a number of years, but get your first priorities done first and then go ask.
Was the funding of the sewer extension related to the accreditation issue? Could we
Couldn't tell
know?
you. I could not tell you.
Okay.
That's,
If
they
you're
wouldn't
stabbing
say
yourself
that.
in the foot
They wouldn't
because
say that at the meeting, that it wasn't accredited to it. It was just, it was thrown out there, but it wasn't say, I think Mike asked that. Or somebody asked it, if I remember right, if it was accredited, if the accreditation was tied to this, and they really wouldn't answer it.
Hmm.
Which to me says, no, it's not.
Well, if you look at that letter that we received from the New England Association of School on the back,
Yep.
it talks about. They're looking forward to finding, provided updated the status of $81 million bond and progressive revolving remaining facility issues to include crowding of the school and classrooms, science labs, inadequate outdated electrical systems, inefficient heating systems, traffic pattern in the school for long distance travel between classes. In other words, connect that wing again. A media center, library, cafeteria, main office and guidance area. There's nothing on there about, there's still some items on here that aren't on here. And we're just talking about the high school only for the accreditation, right?
Right.
Ask a process question. If you don't vote, what is it you would be voting on here? Because this isn't up to you. This
No,
is-
it's not us, it's up to the
This is
the district.
So when the budget committee will say their position on it like they always do.
So for the select board and the town, this really, this was just a way for the select board really didn't have a chance to discuss it amongst themselves. This was an opportunity for them to be all together and have a discussion. But they can't change the language. They really can't do any, it's really up to the school board to make any changes they might want to make.
On the next,
The select board is more than welcome to express an opinion. However, they really don't have any authority.
Yep, and I think that's the biggest reason we are having this is to voice our opinion on it, whether we for it or against it. Or, but like I said, if this fails, they're back to the drawing board and maybe they should include the select boards, because they're the ones that gotta deal with the taxpayers in the town that are gonna come in and scream and holler.
So-
Actually,
Well, I'm sorry. One of the things that you can do is you can vote to ask them to reconsider. You could at least make a formal request to them to reconsider at least the wording. I don't know, because they would like one more look at it before they approve the draft. So if you wanted to make a motion to say, hey, we'd like to see priority list or some, I don't know, whatever your thoughts might be, we could potentially
That's
do
too
that.
late now.
Too late to get on the warrant though, isn't it?
Well, we don't have the draft yet. And they still want to see the draft.
They had a drop dead date by the 30th or 31st of August, didn't they?
Well, that's when we had to have it to the printer, but we don't have it back from the printer yet.
So what's the drop dead date?
I don't have one.
Okay,
We could get it tomorrow. We could get it next week. It's, you're put in order of when it's received.
Would you have to say?
I had a question. Thank you for jogging my memory. There's 5 towns in RSU 40. What if 4 approve and 1 voted down? What happens?
If it passes, it passes.
I'm not sure how that works.
I think it's total votes.
Total
It's
votes, total
it's
votes.
total votes
Total.
between the 5 towns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a $200,000 house right now, the taxes are gonna, by 2025, will start going up $400, maybe $800 a year.
They were
For the
saying
next 20 years.
29 was when you'd see that
The full
full
amount.
full amount.
So 2029, you could see, by then your house could potentially be worth 300,000. And now you're paying $1,200 a year on a house
That's
for
already
the
there.
next, for the next.
We're already at
18,
the average
17,
house.
18 years, minimum.
The median house is already $300,000
Yeah.
and a trailer is $150,000 or $200,000.
Yep. I'm just being conservative.
You can't
No.
build a double wide on
I
a
don't want
2
to
acre
blow it
lot
up
for
to
less than
make it worse than what it
250,000.
could be, but if somebody wants to, that's perfectly fine with me.
Market value is probably gonna drop.
Yeah,
my concern is that we don't come across as a bunch of mean old white men. Sorry,
No,
I'm being
no,
very
it's
frank.
realistic. It's realistic. I'm sorry, but it's realistic.
I think our priority is that we need to have a good educational system in the town.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no
agree.
question about that. I think what we're having problems is the way in which this has been presented as an ultimatum.
Yeah.
And tantamount to being an ultimatum without any basis for a clear conversation about what the real issues are and how we can solve them.
So I think part of the issue is, just because I've learned this in the last couple of years, is I think from their perspective, they've done what they should. And I think from probably your perspective and what the townspeople are going to say is, so this is because people don't go to the school board meetings.
Right.
They aren't getting any feedback. Their feedback was from who work in the schools and all of this. So they haven't really gotten feedback. So now the public is hearing about this for the first time. So hopefully that will generate more feedback from the public itself. because I think that's part of the issue is from their perspective, yeah, we've done it, we're putting it on. This is when you do your PR. And that, yet from our perspective, we're kind of saying, well, you should have started a while ago. But I think it's difficult to start having these conversations right now. And I think we're the first town that's going to have this on the ballot in November. Because we're a June town meeting.
Well, they have a schedule they're following to talk to every single town in the district. And I think
You
this is-
forwarded it to me, thank you, Bob.
So they're doing their due diligence in that regard, but they're presenting the same case to all towns. And that's where the issue lies.
So every town is not gonna be voting on this in November?
I don't believe
They
so.
are.
I think
I think they
Oh,
are.
they are.
Yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I was under the impression, and I could be wrong, that the March town meeting would be a March town meeting. They weren't having a special.
Like friendship.
I was under the
Friendship.
impression like friendship would be in March, but I could be wrong. I could be
No, they go.
I thought that's
every
what-
ta- It's going on every town's ballot in November.
in November. Okay,
Yep.
I
Referendum,
was,
yeah.
I,
that's my understanding.
okay. Because I know when Pam called last week, there were some towns that had no clue. When she called about when their drop dead date was for the. She was like, well, I think it was Warren didn't know it was coming, or I don't. So I thought that was because it was in March.
Well, the silver lining is that people are talking about it. I think everybody I'm meeting with is, we don't get together to talk about the school budget, but it's an important.
And I just want to bring up again that this affects the borrowing capacity of the town.
Yep.
And I know somebody had asked this at the last meeting, so Peg did a beautiful job. Currently, the total debt for the town is at almost 1.6 million. For the water department, it's $924,000 for a total of $2.5 million in debt. And I just have to say, for a town of our size with our budget, that's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And that's a credit to the budget committee and the select board and how we go about planning things and really handle our debt well. The municipal borrowing by statute defines maximum overall debt is 7.5% of full state valuation. And then they have things with what the school can borrow, the maximum debt limit that the school could borrow. School purposes may not exceed 10% of the last full state valuation. So we're looking at 61 million for the school. Now that's for our portion. Just bear in mind, it can go up to 15%, which would be 93 million. So I just think we need to be mindful that, we've had on the books for a while, a community center and what that potentially could cost. So if we have plans, I think we have to be extra transparent. And what I'd like to do is maybe convene the budget committee in late September, or early October, just to talk about this, because I think it's important that we let them know what's going on, because it could affect what we're doing in the future, because we may have projects that we think are worthy. The water, extending water and sewer may become important. So I think we need to just be mindful of that and just keep them in the loop. So if that's okay with you, we can have a joint meeting, maybe our first meeting in October. If that's okay. I'm seeing yeses.
Yes.
Okay,
You Want a motion?
no, I can just go by is that what I'm seeing?
Consensus.
I have a consensus.
Anything else, George? Pop up your head.
It just seems like if you're trying to remove some of the uncertainty that's really out there. The idea that they don't know how much grant money might come into this, it's all wiggly. And people don't like to make decisions with wiggly numbers. If what we would have done 30 years ago was figure out the priorities and look for funding this year for next year, not $81 million 5 years out. It would be discrete, justifiable projects that you funded either by borrowing or just
Right.
through the budget. But
That's
this-
right, we're back to the leach field, the water and this, you know, the heating.
And I still think it should be a way to get it on the town sewer system. The town couldn't borrow money if we used up our credit card on this. I think is what you just said.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's gonna take all our borrowing.
You're applying for a credit card with a with a very large credit ceiling. And there's somebody else holding it.
And the problem becomes is that if we do have things that need to be done,
Yeah.
we're not gonna be able, and I just. Not seeing the finances of it yet and seeing, well, this is gonna be Waldeboro's share of the debt and this is gonna be Warren, I'd like to see those numbers. And I think it's important for us to know those. And I mean, the bond council, I'm sure will. Be able to give us those numbers.
Some of those capital, building more school or whatever space it was. It seems like there should have been competitive bidding for a project, and yet instead they just picked out, well, I bet we could do it for $8 million.
Right.
And everybody knows I'm.
Well, you're right about that, George, because I questioned the RSU quite extensively about how they're gonna go about getting this. Usually when Public Works Department decides it needs something, the first step is to do a facilities plan.
Yeah.
And there's no facilities plan. And then you hire a consulting engineer to implement that facilities plan. Then you hire a contractor to do the work. And then you need a contract administrator at the back end to make sure all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed. There's none of that in this.
The middle school doesn't have cornices because we were trying to save money.
Yeah.
It's. I couldn't believe what I watched.
Anybody else get anything?
Guys, to that.
All right, we got something else on the agenda.
Well, it was a last minute addition, but it's good. It's a good thing.
Ask for grant
We have a
request.
$2,500 grant request that we can give to the Lincoln County Planning Commission for $2,500 to assist for paying for the engineering study that would extend our municipal water from the intersection of Main Street and Old Route 1 to the intersection of Route 1 and Grace Avenue, roughly half a mile, and further along Old Route 1. Wright Pierce estimated the work between $10,400 and $15,400. And the $2,500 from the LCRPC would be matched with $7,900 to $12,900 from the TIF. So we're basically applying for $2,500, but I just needed your blessing that you're okay with us submitting this
You
application.
wanna make a
Yeah,
motion?
yeah, I will. Max wrote up about that in his
Yes,
report.
He did.
And I couldn't agree with him more. It's worth figuring that out. So I would make a motion that we go with that S grant and fund it in the way that Max has suggested. We get money and move on.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
And I do have one more item if we wanted to go into an executive session regarding contracts with our union. About potential winter hours,
Stage right?
if that would be okay with you.
Yep, do you know what that would be, Bob?
It's a personnel matter,
No, it's contracts,
contracts, that's A.
contracts negotiations.
Yeah, 401. Section. Sorry.
MRSA.
If it's
Hold on, I'll look
405,
it up.
I get it. 405A.
Oh, he's got it. Hold on, I got it.
Written down.
Section 405. 6A, sorry, section 405, 6A.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd make the motion that we move into executive session pursuant to MRS 405, 6A to discuss contractual matter.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
And no formal action will be taken afterwards, correct?
Have a good night.
Thanks, Elizabeth. You too, dear.
Thank you, sir.
Geez, I can't remember my glasses.
You said it online.
And I said that online. I'm blind and I'm old. My old granny.